Hi, folks. Nick Tockert here with the Historical Fencing Guild. Before we get into it, I need to pay some bills. So first and foremost, I have to put a shout out to our good friends over at the Independent Creator Directory. That's IndieCD.org, your one-stop shop for the best of the brightest authors, artists, and musicians. Um, Without their help and background help, I could not put the production of the program that I do the way I do. So thank you. We are also made possible by uh, a small uh, kickback on my affiliate link. So if you go to Purple Heart Armory and use this link, and when you buy stuff, I should get a small portion of what you buy. I think I get like 2% back. And if I can save that up and turn that into store credit, essentially, I could be a happy camper because it means that I will be able to review new products. We also are made possible by the Simple Sword, the Fighting Axe, and the Simple Spear, all part of my ongoing series of Western martial arts manuals designed to help you go from having never handled a sword to teaching the art to others, available on Amazon or from me at assorted conventions. Now, we also have to thank our amazing patrons. You guys are the bread and butter. Off in the Woods, Frog G, Ronald Rain, Bladed Thesis, Brian K. Morris, Cindy Kep, Steve Augusto, Don Dulas, Angelina Becerra Link, and of course, our newest, Trelena Bachman is a patron. Thank you so much. Your small donations, because I don't ask a lot, allow me to provide free edutainment to a lot of people. It allows me to teach people who otherwise couldn't have any access to martial arts training to be able to, and for me to keep doing what I do. And we have a lot to discuss in that department. Let me check the comments. And hello, we are joined by Foxy. Evening, everyone. Thesis, hey, everybody. Midnight Maharaja. What's up, Sword People? And of course, Kitty. Hello, Kitty. So, we have a lot to talk about today. First, again, I want to put a huge shout out to Trelena Bachman. I did not expect her to actually do this. There was no warning. It just decided to join as a paid Patreon member, and it was just, honestly, it was beautifully shocking to me because it was a win at a time I'm not expecting a lot of wins. Let me just do some background stuff. We are. I've been dealing with some stuff in the background, obviously. And hello, Don Dulas. Now, Trelena actually made a purchase that is relevant to what we are doing. That being, let me bring it up. Fields and bucklers. It should come up here. I'll be mad if it doesn't. And I will bring this up like so. I am looking through. Oh, at the stage. There we go. The Tallhofer Mac Armory. Now, there's a review already. I wonder who did it. Great buckler, got the Swakhammer. She says grip is comfortable. Okay, cool. I expect there to be quite a good deal to talk about this particular buckler because, and let's switch our priorities here just for a minute. No, oh bugger. Well, yep, it did it again. Thanks for the heads up. Oh, okay. I can't edit the schedule. That's weird. There we go. All right. To anyone who came in on the Historical Fencing Guild channel, we did have a system glitch. This is being broadcast as a doubled feature to the Nicholas Tucker channel and the Historical Fencing Guild channel. Thank you both. Thank you all for catching that. Came in a little late, but we're here. Thank you. I knew I did something silly. This buckler, and I want to highlight the buckler more and me less. There we go. Is based on Thalhofer's designs, but has a remarkable grip that this picture does not quite show. Well, it does. And most importantly, this handles much like Trelena's turtle shell, which means you can do sweeping parries with it. We're very excited. Hey, Trey, I'm so glad you made it. We had some technical issues in that I derped and brought us up on the wrong channel. So this is getting an extra stream to the Nicholas Tucker channel. Thank you, guys. Just one of those days. I'll explain why I'm a little flustered in a moment. But Trelena has been absolutely in love with this buckler from what I've talked to her, and I'm hoping to get her on to do a quick review. Now, let me look at my calendar. There we go. 2 weeks, the 17th, I will be having our practice here at weather permitting and all that fun stuff. To allow for the for practices, and we will be able, hopefully, assuming Trelena can join us, test this wonderful buckler and see how it goes. It's supposed to be resistant to, compatible with plastic, so we will see how that is. And I'm excited because I love seeing historically based equipment in a way that we can test it. So it's just the cat's meow. So now, people ask me what I do with the guild money, and what am I intending to do? Oh, you have a mighty excitement. I bet you do. I'm excited. We're 2 weeks from practice. I have a new goal. A while ago, I did a vote for some items, and unfortunately, due to the shipping hazards, I may not be able to get what I wanted. So I'm going to have to look around. But I was discussing with Trelena and some of my other fighters. They have we'll just make it easy. Let me just put this away, and I'm going to bring up this ongoing super high res map of my backyard for what we're working toward. Now, what you see is the house, and my current list field has had the ropes pulled down. So it is not, the 25 by 25 we've been fighting in is not quite set up. But I actually am thinking of constricting it down to 20 by 20 and getting a carport. Now, I want to say it was either Walmart or Amazon had one for $400. So I will now be socking money away with the intention of buying a $400 carport and having, for the first time in the history of the Historical Fencing Guild, a covered list field so that we can fight in the daytime and not cook, in the rain and not be miserable. At night, we'll have to light it up. But once it's here, we can do the lighting a little differently, so it won't quite look like a stadium in my backyard. So that's what I will be saving up for the guild purposes. Now, to explain why I was running late last late today. Upon my outing, we had some rather bad windstorms lately, and one of my windows is actually an older damaged window in my house. Let me just bring this back up because you don't need that. And the panes blew out. We have plastic. We have plexiglass planes that will have to be reattached, and getting them set stable enough. Well, it took a chunk out of my planned day, and I may be out on my roof in the dark, depending on how things go, securing it, because rain, heavy rains are coming, and if we have more snow, God, I'm tired. More extreme winds, I don't want to lose the plexiglass panes on my window. So I will be dealing with that bit of shenaniganry. Still, these things happen. Now, in other news, while I am waiting to have, oh yes, new toy excitement is always good. While I am waiting to have a few of these things done and have Trelena come down to help me, we have to schedule it. Film the custom videos, because I'm going to do a full breakdown of the style I teach in the Historical Fencing Guild, which is chronicled in the Simple Sword. Step-by-step videos, in depth, actually scheduled, slowed down from multiple angles, with a female presenter and a male presenter to help with the understanding for your body type. We may also later bring in my lovely wife, as when she's a little more mobile. She has some rather severe knee issues she is dealing with. My speech impediment's kicking up, pardon me. And those will be recorded, and however, those will be a Patreon exclusive. And the reason they're going to be Patreon exclusive is I definitely want them to be downloadable. Now, I'm not going to put much of a paywall in front of it. I think I'll rig it for, anyone who pays $1 or more will have access. And that the point is to get it out there, but because it is that in-depth instructional, YouTube can be a little finicky, as can other things. So I want you guys to have access to this information. But I also want to reward my patrons who are making this all possible. Upon the completion of this series, because we will do a whole series of little videos, I want to edit it and possibly sell it as like a DVD or or a download that can be used by everybody. Again, to make it as simple and easy to learn a basic style for everyone. In other related news, before we get back into the joys of the list field and such, I plan to be forging literally as soon as we have some days where the weather breaks. I have just about everything set up. I actually have a wire mesh table coming in, mesh top table. So I'll be able to put my forge on something that should radiate the heat enough that I don't have to worry about it catching fire while I am, forging. This is good. I will probably find a way to be able to attach and remove my forge so I can build up, tear down. That would keep it very mobile. So hopefully I can eventually do demonstrations at the outside of the local library, the Benton County Public Library. This is me planning long ball, but I intend to make at least some very simple knives. Between the forging and learning welding, I intend to make simple riggings. As soon as I am to a point where I can do this reliably, I will be doing videos on how you can to make your gear acquisition a little easier, especially given the financial challenges that are cropping up because of the tariffs. I'm very excited about that too. So I have a lot that I'm on the cusp of having be made available. I'm also on the cusp of having essentially my dream, which is to have my backyard look like a cross between. Sorry, I just saw a rather large spider, but if it stays over there and I stay over here, we'll be fine. A cross between a Ren Fair SCA event and Inman's, which was a family fun kind of center in lovely Valparaiso, Indiana, that I used to frequent. Putt-putt games, things like that. Except instead of having play games, simulated knife throwing, I'll have actual knife throwing and axe throwing. Still planning planning archery if I can make a safe backstop for it. I don't want to send arrows into my neighbor's yard, and I certainly don't want to send anything into the granary thing behind my house. So all this is basically getting built and applied this year. And much of it is getting built and applied in the next 2 weeks leading up to practice. May 10th is Big Item Pickup Day, so that Friday I will be doing a lot. I will be schlepping heavy things. I may have to cancel this program to get things done. I may have to cancel NTF to get things done. But that will give me a massive jumping off point to finally, I've talked for years about I want the facilities in place. I want the things in place. We are making that happen. And I'm trying to get what I need ahead of the tariff pricing. I say this because I was at Walmart today and I saw several things that I track price-wise because they are in my interests, all spike around 20% as a starter. So I expect things to get much more expensive in the near future. That means we have to deal with that as we can. It also gets interesting because on my end, we are paying our property taxes this month, which means after weeks and weeks of being broke due to necessities, we are going to be broke due to paying our taxes like good citizens. It's going to be a run. And for me, next month, I got to drop $100 on my art site hosting because I am a paid member at DA, in part because, well, I've been on there 20 years and I felt at about 18, it was time to really give back a little to the system that supported me. That's getting an update too. I am going to be a very, very busy individual, and I am excited about that. Now, while I have been doing all of this, I have gotten into some very nice academic support boards, academic support sites that publish papers. And given that my interests are rather niche, I am now getting access to papers on, for example, I have a wonderful general introduction to sword fighting and swords throughout the Western history, leading up to and through rapiers. Great article. I'm reading it now, and it's like 36 pages long, so it's a light read. Once it's done, I'm planning to start a new secret Google folder that my paid patrons, again, will have access to. Compiling all these papers as much as possible in a single area. After a certain amount of time, I will try to host that over to a more publicly accessible folder, giving me a backup. Right now, there's a lot of deletion of history. There's a lot of deletion and alteration of things. So I'm going to do what I can to preserve the knowledge of what we do. I may enlist the assistance of the Benton County Public Library or my old secret box, which needs to be fired back up, to print off and make a literal file archive of these pieces of knowledge, because hard copy is important. This is part of why I always encourage you, if you have the money and the availability of space and interest, purchase hard copies of just about any book you love. It is so vital that we make sure unedited, well, unexternally edited, shall we put it, volumes are preserved, especially of the martial arts. As many martial arts, including, say, Bartitsu, as well as a large number of Eastern martial arts, the thesis would be far likely more versed in listing off, are recreations. They are resurrections based on the manuals that you find. In fact, many to most of the Western martial arts currently are of the same thing. You study from the manuals. There are very few lineages of sword mastery. Okay, lineages of instruction that one can currently trace all the way up. There are a few. They're usually in or adjacent European royal families, European aristocratic families, families that have very specific ties to them, where it is important to keep, say, the family style preserved and present. Um, for example, because I just got a message asking, okay, what's a lineage and how do you track it? It's real easy. I have a lot of instructors, so I'm a hard person to track full lineage down. I have my first instructor in the SCA, who I will never name, not because not because I'm scared of that individual, but because I don't want to risk him ever getting any hint of fame or notoriety. But what I learned far more in spite of him. I also learned from Dennis Yakus and Jody Kingerly quite a bit, and some from Bob Houghton, but most I learned from Bob Houghton, and Jody became Jody Houghton, from sparring against him, because he's he was a very good fencer. John Miner, and let's see, boom, boom, boom. I learned a lot from John Miner. Oh my gosh, I've learned a lot from John Miner. I refined some of my karambit and knife techniques from people like Viktor Vukovitz, Professor Peter, though I only had one course with him, I learned a vast amount in it. It was a privilege, and if I ever get a chance to, I would love to dance with that man again. Jesse Tibbetts, rest in peace. Trade off with, we'll call him by his YouTube handle, Sword Sage. A lot of trading there, a lot of trading with Steve Clausen, a lot from Rex Allen Hood. I taught him, he came back and taught me things. Trade off. There have been a lot of people, and there's a lot of manuals, guys. A lot of manuals, and a lot of just trial and error and watching people. So I'm hard to track that way. But once you get from me, we could say Ruby is learning from Trey. Trey learned a lot from me and many of the same people who influenced me. But one could easily draw a line from me to Trey to Ruby. This is a thing that needs to be kept track of. And because you people will eventually want to know. And I've long since listed the masters who most influenced me. Thibault, Ettenhard, of course Gigante. And then what I picked up so heavily from the other martial arts. Plus, of course, ironically, the redirections I picked up from Tai Chi, from, I believe he did Hapkido primarily. And see, that's a problem. I cross-trained and sparred with people who cross-train and spar, so it gets very mutt-ish in the lineage. It blurs and murks. But it's important to know. Maybe not now, but I try to leave it as obvious for later generations. And there are people who are going to say, Nick, your stuff is okay, but I can improve on it. And that's exactly what I want. I want you to learn and study and cross-reference and do what you think is an improvement on my style, even if it's just for you. Because my goal has always been to help you find your fight. And once you know the flavor of your fight, you can and should, and I believe are obligated to write down your findings, write down your preferences, write down what worked, what didn't. And bind people and bind and create your volumes, and then disseminate it. If you aren't going to publish it, write it up and put it somewhere people can get it. You don't have to make money off of it. But you do, however, need to preserve it. Because with as much as all the martial arts give us, we have the opportunity to give back. And that's always a just thing. There is a lot of karmic debt in what we do, my friends. Therefore, we must always strive to do as much effective good, to spread as much peace, and to be as loving as possible when violence is not necessary. Because when you study, you start getting the realization that why you do what you do is often as important as what you do. And you never know just how influential you're going to be. Dawn says, or a book. Thesis says, I can't train my lineage very well either. I started learning Mantis from an old Chinese man out of his garage when I was in middle school. He insisted on being called Yahweh? Yao? Wow, that was a mispronunciation. That was a mispronunciation. That was not on purpose, boss. Anyway, that, which is grandfather in Chinese, done accidental summonings a lot. I've never accidentally paged the boss. It was seriously done with no disrespect. Anyway, but that was the beginning of the story, and I've trained with other people since then. The gentleman you learned Mantis from is exactly the kind of person I love to meet. They're some of my favorites. Because when you have somebody who doesn't profit from the instruction financially, or I guess these days you say clout-wise, they just teach you and leave. Or, you move on. There's something special to that, something to be respected. And Don and I were talking about red string connection boards a couple hours ago. I am so not surprised, Mags. The flow of causality has been very interesting of late. But it is a good. Oh yes, they're pestering him about the book. And yes, you need to write your fiction. Fiction is good, but you need to be taking notes for your manuals. You need to write that down and start just taking those notes. Your fans want your next story. Your students and those you will never know want your manual. It is also a very real way that it is also a very real way that we preserve a piece of ourselves for posterity. Not all of us will be gifted with biological children. And those who have been gifted with biological children may not have children who are physically, mentally, socially, spiritually able to carry the burden of our legacies. And there's no shame in any of that. And it's certainly not a call out. But in many ways, books, I'm fidgeting with things, the books we write are intellectual children. They are born of our thoughts and our observations and our training and our perspective. And they pass that on far beyond us. And that's something we have to remember, is to always be in service. Oops, sorry, I left that up. And the red string of fate connects us all. Absolutely. Kitty says, good job, Don. Pester him about the book. And I'd like to see, speaking of Kitty, if I haven't hounded you about this, I would love to see the The Lovely Kitty's Guide to Rope Dart, or how to apply justice from X meters away. But no, seriously, I would love to see, even if it's just a paper, a report, homework of some sort, an article. Write something up on your how your training works, what you learned that worked, what you learned that didn't, how it overlaps with your dance. Thesis is not alone in needing to jot this sort of thing down. And when you are learning, you should be taking notes. And I mean it, just like if you were in high school or in college, when you learn new concepts and you get to where at home, write them down. Okay? And truth. Yeah, pestering about the books. I used to remember the NTF where Nick did a rundown of all the Joes around. Yeah. And Midnight Maharaja says, Monk and I trained together when I was in Utah for a while, so I guess that connects me to his grandfather teacher too. Yes. Yes, it does. And think about this. All of us who have read Sun Tzu and have applied his philosophies, in one way or another, are tied to Sun Tzu. All the masters that Trelana and I studied, sometimes literally side by side, reading over a manual, we're all tied to them. When you start looking at this, you start to realize what a tight-knit community we really are. And we are knit by our emotional connections, our friendships, our educations, our shared experiences. That is a powerful network of people. I'm tied to hot dumpster juice McBro. Well, Trey, you and I are both tied to someone else too. And what we learn not to do can be as important as learning what we are to do, sometimes more important. I will say this, and I will say this gladly and proudly. A large number of the decisions and perspectives I have made were born from deliberately and decisively opposing the philosophies and instructions of my sword masters or instructors. And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes, if you are morally opposed to a technique being deployed that way, or physically because you think it's just wrong, you have to do that. And yeah, Foxy's giggling about us being tied to other people. And were any other person we were discussing, I'd be laughing about it. But ugh. Anyway, but that's a necessary part of the road that brought us here to where we have learned enough that we feel, and justifiably so, that the knowledge, wisdom, experience, and ideas that we hold, I keep dropping everything I'm fidgeting with, are valuable enough, meaningful enough, that we have not only applied them to ourselves, but that we are applying them to our students. We are using those as building blocks to help form the footstool that we are to elevate them to the next level. That's cool. I know not a lot of martial arts instructors take the time to speak on things like the karmic debt of what we do, the cost of performing and understanding violent acts, even in simulation, even in fun. They don't talk about the philosophies, the ideas behind the whys. There are a great many people who will go and study any given martial art and never question to ask about the context of that art. Never ask about the depth, the philosophy, the practicality. I know so many people who have studied martial arts and never stress tested it, never sparred to see how it holds up. And it is possible, you have to understand, for someone to lose a bout but prove their point. I'm going to say that again. It is possible for someone to lose a bout but prove their point. When we are sparring, it is not a dick measuring contest. It is not a dominance assertion value. Now, there's some people it is for them, and if that's what gets their rocks off, okay, that's good for them. But what it is a physical debate and discussion. And if you think about the difference between an argument, a debate, and discussion, as someone who has fought many people, you realize there are some people that if I step on the other side of the list field, this is going to be an argument. Okay, this is going to be an ugly argument. Like all the dirty tricks, every bit of manipulation I can come up with, everything you can come up with, it's going to be dark and dirty arguing, but with swords. Sometimes you will spar with people who it is a debate. I am better because of this point, and you accept that point is coming in, and you deflect it with your own. But in counterpoint, I'd like to bring up this. I see. You have a valid point there, or whoa, I accept your point. You're right. That's optimum in a competitive setting. That's what it should be. A civil debate. When you are tournament having in whatever your game may be. Then there are people you are having a discussion. And the people I can have a deep discussion with in person, where we can bring up real fundamental issues, much like we're discussing in our chat, at any given day. I value, because I find martially we can have similar discussions. And when I have someone I can have a discussion with, I can say things like, I cannot put this point across to you because I lack the physicality. But you need to know your logic is vulnerable to this. Your argument is vulnerable to this. Rhetoric. That's the word I was looking for quite some time. The strength of your rhetoric. In sparring, you have all of this. And you are doing it for a reason. And it isn't the prize at the end of the day, or should it be? Or the accolades. If you do it long enough, you will get to a point where you are doing it for the pursuit of accuracy. You're learning and training with the intent of being more precise in your style. This is an old story. It is a story I'm telling from memory. And it is a story that's been told in different ways by many people, but it is applicable. A young man was learning Tai Chi from his father. And the young man was struggling to learn the sequences, to learn the song that the notes in Tai Chi sing. Meanwhile, his father could glide through all the sequences of his kata effortlessly. A thing of beauty, just faster than the boy could ever imagine, just grease lightning. And he was talking to his father, and he said, Father, I am afraid for grandfather. And his father said, And why is that? I fear his mind is going. And the father asked, Why do you think that? This morning, at dawn, as we, as a whole family and all the members of the household, went to greet the day with their Tai Chi forms, as they did every day. In the back, because he no longer led it, was the grandfather. And whereas all the students would go through watching the father teach, the grandfather would go and pick a move, stop, and painfully slowly rewind, just undoing the weave of the motion to again deploy it. And long after everyone else was done, grandfather would be there, going through the forms, but stopping at given motion and doing them innumerable times before finally moving on. the son, you've forgotten how to do the forms. And his father laughed a little bit and went and brought the son to the grandfather and said, "Honored father, your grandson fears for your mind. Please tell him why." And he looked at him and said, "You seek knowledge of the forms. To the grandson, he said, to his son, he said, "You seek mastery of the forms. In my times, I have sought knowledge of the form, and I have sought mastery of the form. Now I am embracing understanding of the form." And for him, it wasn't that he couldn't remember the forms. It was he had reached a level where, as a master, he needed perfection. And like a wood carver with sandpaper, when you're learning any martial art, you start off with a big, heavy knife. You start off with your carving knife, and you're chunking off pieces of wood to get the general shape. And as you study wood carving, or scrimshaw, if you've done some of that, you move to eventually a much sharper, lighter cut to shape and mold and get the shape you want. But the old masters get to the point where they use a needle, just like a needle, to put the tiniest flake of wood or antler or bone off to get the shape they want. That's mastery. Mastery is not a noun. Mastery is a verb. It is an action. Becoming a master, I have been given the term sword master. I was given that term because we were looking for a term that did not have implications in specific systems or styles or existing ranks. They needed something for what I was and am. And all it takes to become a sword master is a complete understanding of the basics and the ability to disseminate and project them on to the students. But there is something beyond that. And that's where you've transcended seeking the new secret technique or the new trick shot. Because there was a point where while you were learning, you learn every style you can, every technique you can, you absorb and you process. Once you understand the basics, it unlocks a world of new techniques. And you bury yourself in manuals as high as you can, every time you can. You scour for video and opportunities to watch those greater than yourself fight and train, gleaning the wisdom that they leave in their wake for those willing to pay attention. And you try to master it. You try to understand it and bring it in and see if it will work for you, and if it won't, why, and how to counter it. You weave and knot and tie and bind this thing together. Beyond that point, though, and it is partially a product of age and partially a product of finally having perspective, is the slow and endless journey of refinement. That's what I'm after at this point, my age. When I look at my personal journey, which is something I rarely look at, the vast majority of time I'm looking at what do my students need? Who do you need me to be for you to be the best you can be? Do you need me to be a confidant, a support, a pillar, to prop and hold and allow you to be shaped as you need it? Am I to be a companion that you learn from fighting side by side against an outside threat? Or do I need to be an antagonist? Do I need to don the role of the black hat so that you have someone you will hate enough to do your very best? I have been all these things and many more. I have been the sovereign of my Soleil, and I have clumsily jaunted about like a clown, a jester. The many masks a sword master must wear to give their students the role they need. And all that time, when it looked to, well, what am I doing for myself? I just want my basics to be better. As I recover from yet another, bout of disability. For those of you who know large portions of my story, that is nothing new. But I always come back to the same place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4-point lunge. The 4-point 4-count lunge. Extend, step, retract, recover. over and over and over again, endlessly into the night, convincing once again my battered body and dying nerves to just one more time go through the cycle, just once more. And understanding that there's always a once more. That is my personal journey. When I talk about the sword, I truly believe you can carve a life out with it. I have. Everything good I have has come basically from the sword. It gets easier when you realize the sword and the pen are the same thing. It gets infinitely complicated when I try to explain that. But all of it was made possible and maintained by the sword. There is only one opponent. Only one. Only one great villain, only one true enemy, only one thing that stands between you and everything you want, only one monstrous foe, a nemesis, an endless, eternal opposition. The only one you are truly fighting, my friends, as you grow, as I grow, and I shift into new stages. My foe never changes, and yours won't either. My foe is myself. And the journey is a constant battle to defeat myself, to be a greater self. To battle once again the demons that we carry with us. Because the darker self will whisper and pull towards hatred or towards sloth, towards the most deadly of things, a lukewarm passion. My friends, when you go into your studies, when you read the manuals or you watch the videos or you train with a master, when you spar with friend or foe alike, I will always ask that you be kind, that you be intelligent about it, that you try to do the right thing. But somewhere beyond the standard moral code, I ask you, do not be lukewarm in your passions. Learning the sword can ignite a fire in someone, but that fire must be maintained, must be stoked and shaped, because that is the fire on which we forge ourselves. And like the fire in any forge, it has to be fueled and given air, but it has to be harnessed and directed and controlled. But nothing can be created on a lukewarm forge. The world will lie to you. It will try to tell you that your pursuits don't matter, that it may not be popular or well received. It may not be convenient or it may not be acknowledged. But what you have to do is realize that your passions matter because it is yours. And there comes a point where no one and nothing else matters. Beyond your goal and for whom the goal is sought. For me, I think training is a bit like a prayer. The pain that goes into it is a sacrifice of sorts. And the results over the years have been remarkable. Understand, and it is painful for me to admit this, it is painful for me to talk about this, but I, in many ways, am a broken thing. Misshapen, malformed. My spine is bent, subtly, but decisively, in such a way that it is, and will always be, painful to look up. For all the jests about my alleged cryptid nature, which I am not, I am, though subtle, quite literally a hunchback. I hide it well, usually. The study of the sword has brought me strength. It has brought me resilience. And it has brought me a very specific kind of discipline. I was told at one point I had 6 months till I was going to be in a wheelchair. I could try physical therapy, at the time $700,000 thing. Hello, Sin, and hello, Dave. By the way, I could. But I did my drills and I did my therapy. When I finally got treatment after my hands stopped working and the nerves in my hands stopped obeying me, I asked, when will I be able to build up the strength in my hands? And they said, never. They told me I would never gain the agility of my hands again, let alone strength. But I did my drills and I did my OT. Was it light? Did I do drills with dowel rods wrapped in foam to be able to grab? Certainly. Of no weight? Absolutely. But over time, I got my hands in my art back because it just became part of my drills. Now today, they've finally started to figure out what's wrong with me. They found the arthritis and bone spurs and malformed bits in my spine and other places. It's delightful. They found the dead nerves and the nerves that just were never there, even though they should have been. Also, delightful. Quirks of anatomy. And they keep telling me to understand that it's going to stop working. Oh, thank you, Sin. And yes, they are. I'm going to bring that one up. Physical occupational therapy and drills are basically the same thing. Also, I've been here like 30 seconds, and your story already seems inspiring as hell. Thank you. It's very nice to meet you. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Usually, I'm a little more dynamic. I'm a little more goofy, but sometimes it's necessary to pull out the truth. And the truth is, it always comes down to, but I did my drills. I reduced to nothing when I stopped doing my drills. I'm quickly unmade. I have found this out. I've been told, Nick, you don't have to do that every day. Nick, you don't have to do your PT every day. But whenever I stop, I start to unravel. And as I've slowly built my strength back, over quite a few years now, one more time, I can say to those of you who've come to me in the past with physical limitations, I do understand. And I can say to you, to those of you who come to me in the future, I do understand. And if there is some way, some path that I can find for you to take to change the styles and techniques so that it fits you, then I'm doing my job. Because in the end, the thing that makes a master is not how many bouts he's won or lost. It's not even the effectiveness of his style. or hers or theirs. I've been speaking enough of my own story tonight that I have defaulted to my own gender. Please don't take that poorly. But it comes to figuring out what are the drills that give you the power. What will let you refine and become something perhaps a bit more than you were before? And with it, what can you wield to help someone else become more than they were? The practicality and the combativeness will always be present and necessary. I make no false or silly explanations over what training with weapons is, what weapons can do, what it is to give and receive pain and violence and harm. Visible and invisible, my body is a myriad of scars. But even those fade after a while. So you do what you need to do to survive and pursue your goals. And if you were at all just, if you are all at all fair, if you realize the world is built and maintained on the concept of equivalent exchange, then you have an obligation to refine and train yourself to be as good as you can be, and to record that journey for everyone else to have access to. It's all about learning how to touch the fire and when. First we are told a stove is hot. An object is hot. It was the first concept I really understood as a kid. It was my first word, hot. We had a cast iron potbelly stove. I was a very small boy. I honestly don't know how much of this I remember and how much I remember from hearing the story told over and over again. But my mother would point at it and say, hot. Don't touch, hot. And I was very, very, very young. And I did not understand. I was innocent. So I reached up and touched the stove. And guess what? In a moment of clarity that rattled my tiny, tiny speck of a soggy bacon brain, I understood hot. The first word was me telling Mom, don't touch that. Because it's hot. It was hot. Mom reached for the handle and went, kind of yelled and went, hot. My first word was to warn someone from harm. It's who and what I am. The more people we can teach in life what is hot, though a percentage of them will never listen, and a percentage of them must touch the oven to learn. I was one of them. And sometimes I've been one of them again. But the less people will be burned. The more people can gain the knowledge without the pain, the kinder our world is, the gentler our world can be. And that, as I look out at current events, as I see the fighting and turmoil and chaos, I realize the vast majority of it could be solved with a little bit of thoughtfulness and a little bit of kindness, and maybe a whole lot of common sense. Sid makes a great point. He says, I assume that's a he. I'm trying to read. It's hard to tell by the thing. So if I've missed, I apologize. I'm working with a little tiny picture on my screen. Learn in order to teach, and learn to teach so that others can process our knowledge and our art. It goes farther than that, because now at the end of this lecture, my friends, I give you the great secret. If you wish to learn a subject, I mean, really learn it, understand it, you could study it for a lifetime, but you will never grasp it the way you will when you teach it to someone else. When you hear the questions of another mind, and you watch the light as they understand a concept, in this case, their own capabilities or their own control. The finest way to learn your art is to teach it to others, whatever your art is. So there is an obligation. So I ask you to take notes on your journey. Write them down and maintain them so that you can revisit them, so you can learn from your former self. And so you can continue to teach long after you're gone, because the work is more important than the worker. If you want to know when you have arrived, when you are on that path to becoming, when you are in that cycle, it's when you can begin to plant the seeds for trees you will never be able to sit under. You will never feel the shade of and never eat the fruit of. When you get that mentality, when it transcends your sense of self, your sense of empowerment personally or aggrandizement, we all have to fight the ego. And it becomes about leaving your roadmap to other wanderers so that they may not be as lost as you once were. then, my dear, dear friends, you are on your way towards the state of the eternally learning student, the path we call mastery. Now, I I am sorry if I was heavy, and I will likely be heavy for the next couple weeks. This time of year does that to me. It is a time of year where I have many memories that are associated with, and many of them are unpleasant, but necessary, perhaps. Certainly necessary to be put me on the road I'm on. Thus, we will rejoice in the opportunities that we find, delight in the pursuit of dreams, and build towards those dreams. It may take you decades to do it. My first book published, my first manual, my first foray into the disseminated written word, my humble little manual, took me 15 years of instructing people to figure out how to write. There are so many great resources in here, and I list names. Thesis will probably take great glee that I mentioned the Chinese arts and Dr. Yang Ming. I do. 15 years ago. Actually, no, 15 years to write. 10 years ago published. Delightful. But yes, read it. Who am I? My name's Nicholas Tucker. I am a freelance artist, author, swordmaster, game designer, and retired paranormal consultant. That means I am no longer the guy people are supposed to call at 3 a.m. when things go bump. But occasionally they still do. I spent 12 years in the Society for Creative Anachronism. During that time, I formed the Historical Fencing Guild as a Rosetta Stone so that I could take the knowledge I'd gained there and share it with other organizations and encourage cross training so that we could gain knowledge from those other organizations, be it Amp Guard or Collegiate Fencing, Collegiate Saber, Krav Maga. Oh God! I mean, when I start thinking of all the styles we've had people who did Salat come through, weapon-based Aikido, assorted karates. So many dang styles that my brain goes mush. Heavy fighters, bowhurt fighters. I wanted to create a table where everyone could sit down and without being burdened by the excessive, hard to understand vocabulary. So I wanted us to be able to speak the same language, or at least a similar enough language to be able to have the conversations. Because there's lots of cross fighting. Many practices would have people come out and they'd fight by the rules and have a good time. But we needed first and foremost cross workshops where people could slowly discuss and compare techniques, contrast, because I have the crazy idea that a royal guard from the Ming Dynasty and a Portuguese pirate, their elbows have basically the same range of movement. Their relative reach is the same. Their proportions are roughly the same. That means we should all be studying from each other, because the differences we have in sight, in attitude, in belief, in preference, in finances, all shape the style we train in. But we can all learn from each other. I see the martial arts, especially the weapon-based martial arts, as a great buffet, and I'm a rather fat man. So I have, for my personal styles, picked through with chopsticks, taking a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I have taught people, and when I go, oh, you are leaning, you are aggressive, or you're a fencer, but I find you leaning forward and being aggressive. Let's put you toward Fiore. Or here's a stack of manuals I've acquired, digitally or literally. Bam. Find what works for you. But before that, we had to have a language. Let's see, I'm the new saber instructor for my clothes. Basically, your advice is everything I was struggling with. Who are you, magical swordman? Incredibly flattered with that description. Cross training is based. Cross workshops. How cool would that be? Like Amp Guard, Olympic Fencing, SCA, HEMA, all create a class for the fundamentals for people to learn. What an amazing class would that be? It's called the Historical Fencing Guild. You just found the channel. Now, I had to relocate about 100 miles, and that destabilized a lot. But weekly and locally, we will be having our humble practices again. And eventually, I want to get back towards being able to do open workshops where we can discuss techniques, where we can crack open the manuals and go, what do you think Fiore is saying? And is he full of poop? That was a bash on Fiore. That was just I grabbed the random Swordmaster. Probably should have used silver just because that would have been funnier. But does it work? Does it work for you, or does it only work for certain body types? And we tried to do something similar by our local area with a human instructor and myself, but he wasn't open to learning anything from me, so the idea fell apart. And that's what it does. It takes open-minded, civil-minded people who are passionate about the martial arts, whatever form they are to be, and learning them. There are things you hear about from me a lot once you follow my channel. And if you are interested, then you go farther back. Heck, you can go all the way back to the first video and you'll see a very brown-haired, strange little man going through the 8 basic guards in the system that I teach. And you'll find us sparring in different situations with whatever gear we could acquire across many, many years in different groups and settings and situations. The book I wrote, The Simple Sword, was formulated by looking at historical manuals and focusing, instead of on what they argue about, because that's what they always argue about, I wanted to see what they all agreed on and build a style from that as a beginner style. What do they almost all agree on? And if they do, that must be important. So I wrote my book of that. And I've taught that. And then I tell you, this is so that we can talk, that we can have a physical discussion. We have rules to keep us safe that we talk about beforehand. And we train for the different purposes. Education for fun. We do practical training. I don't know if I should say this, but right now my youngest brother is learning Krav Maga, very very aggressive style, and he's learning it in a very aggressive setting, and he has incurred some injury. I've incurred great injury doing what I do in different settings. Uh, right now, he has a pretty badly bruised rib. Badly bruised. It had been dislocated and relocated, kind of situation. But I couldn't be more proud of him because he went out and went, I feel I need to be able to do this. Found a style, found an instructor, and started learning. Now, he's learned to sword fight from me since, oh, way, 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 way back. In fact, the only picture of my family I have permanently up on the wall is a laminated uh, color print off of a photo took, oh God, probably 25 years ago. Yeah, 25, 24 years ago, of me and my two brothers all holding wooden swords up, crossed like the Three Musketeers. Couldn't be prouder that he's continuing his education. Hope he brings it back and can learn enough control to share it with others. And that's what we do. When we are established, we do exactly that. Cross workshops. It is hard to find people comfortable enough to do that. Is willing, many styles never cross train beyond their borders. Many styles never stress train. They only train in compliance. I have a friend, I don't get to talk to him much because, he lives on the far other side of the country and he's a very busy man these days. But he has a YouTube channel under the handle Sword Sage. And very, very much an Eastern practitioner. Oh, I would love to put him and Thesis in a room with an expensive set of tea and just turn a camera on and walk away. It would be gold. One of those, they would either love each other like brothers or hate each other absolutely. But he and I sparred many, many, many times. And I learned a great deal of the Jin from him. And he got to stress test many of the martial arts pursuits. And it was great because he would come out to my place. And I learned this new technique. And for me, that was like bringing me like a big chocolate chip cookie or a hamburger or something. Did you? It's awesome. Okay, you know the drill. And the drill was this. We would go through at least 3 passes with any new technique he learned. The first would be the demonstration pass. Slow, disgust, and no opposition. Because I grab your arm, I do this, it does this, it twists you around, whatever it was. Block out here, come in here, things like that. Whatever. I'm terrible with vocabulary. It's one of my great weaknesses. But then we would kind of very lightly spar, and he would do the maneuver with compliance. I would not resist it, but that way we could see, just test how to get in and get it done. And then finally, yes, slow, no resistance. We'd be sparring again, very lightly. We had nothing to prove to each other. And then we would he would engage in the technique, and I would oppose it. I would resist, and we'd see how it held. Exactly. Light spar, maybe light resistance. Because again, we didn't need to. We could go, high speed, low impact, because we were both very, very experienced at that point. But seeking out the better way of doing it allowed him to improve and integrate and seamlessly begin to flow from his preferred styles. So he would go from Wing Chun into Bagua and back as the fight called. And I would I would spar him with swords. Oh, ruthlessly and insanely looking back, inappropriately armored. Do not do this at home. Certainly not where we were doing it. But I would sort of fight for hours of just free sparring, to learn, to discuss. And yes, he fought almost exclusively Eastern style. And I fought, for the vast most part, Western style. But we learned from each other. And many times he'd have a, this isn't working. What do I need to change? Well, this isn't working for me. And we would sit and literally just workshop it till we figured it out. Fun guy, great guy. If you aren't subscribed to Sword Sage, you really should be. And tell him I sent you. A great number of people on my channel have come from him. But that's what I try to build. And I've had the privilege of knowing a few people who understand and embrace that vision, chief among them being Trelena Bachman. And she has done some training out of the simple sword to others, and I'm so proud of her. Things that bring me joy is when I see, my book gets purchased, and as high as the price may look, I literally only make about $3. I think it's like $1 and $3 off of my books because of printing costs and things, and I keep it as low as I can, so that you guys have a chance at affording it. And that's why I have very cheap digital options, and things happen. But the best thing that happens, the greatest thing that happens in that front is that I know she can teach the art to others without ego, without anger, without excess pride and full contact. And to know that's going on, and know that when I sell my books, many times they'll be sold overseas, and I'll see one book get bought. And then in between 2 weeks and a month, I'll see 3 more or 4 more, same country, all at once. And that means that someone bought my book, and either it went into a library, which it often does, or they were teaching out of it, and others wanted it. They were learning or teaching. They were sharing the ideas. And that's, hello, that one guy. That is what we're about. At the end of the day, what the Historical Fencing Guild is about is the free and open exchange of concepts, ideas, and philosophies in martial arts, with the intent of giving people just a boost up to the next level. And sometimes people end up getting whole styles, and that's what helps them. And sometimes it's somebody who's rather accomplished, but they learn not to table their shield. And if we can continue to build that kind of path, then these videos I do here matter. And that's what I seek to do. And I'm glad that Thesis is starting to expand and do programming, Chinese-based martial arts programming, discussing primarily. Once in a while, I guess he got crazy and got this weird bearded guy on who just prattled on with him for far too long. But that's what I want to see. When I first started, at the very beginning, when I first started teaching, my instructor, who I shall not name, old Voldemort, split the group of new students coming in on campus into two groups. And hi, Sin. I'm glad to hear. The first group that he kept were the tall, athletic, mostly male, mostly white guys, and I want to say one or two women. And he said, Nick, see what you can do with the rest. And that one day, that one decision shaped my approach to instruction forever. Because it has been my great glee and joy and privilege to find people who may not do well with normal traditional training. They're not traditional students. Many times they're women, many times they're people who have endured traumas. And through teaching the simple sword, they learn to take their power back. And some of them develop a great love of martial arts. And some stick around, and some go off and build other people up, and they go off on their own adventures. But every one of them has left a bit better than they came. Whether they stuck around for one session or they became, lifelong companions simply because they had the question, what's the difference between a catapult and a trebuchet? And I couldn't resist answering it. But I believe martial arts are for everyone. And if you have a limitation, my first sword master, the first person who really taught me, was a guy by the name Dennis Yakus. I totally agree, that one guy. Women and non-binary more. I do find it easier to train people who don't come pre-attached with a conflicting ego, a confronting, aggressive kind of mentality. I don't enjoy working with those people as much. I would have a great many more students if it weren't for my policy that I only teach people over the age of 18, unless they're like relatives. But that's for my own legal safety. But yes, I enjoy building people up. When people come with a lot of ego, a lot of pride, and not much knowledge, you almost have to go through a process of tearing them down. because they've got false mental structures so that you can rebuild them with something more stable, more realistic. And it's a good thing to do, but it's not very fun. But I mean, my first instructor had several very uh, debilitating conditions. He had limited range of movement. He had limited reach because he was a very short fellow. Well, is a very short fellow, I assume. I assume he's still alive. I just don't speak to him anymore because that happens sometimes. My parting with the society was not a pleasant one. It was a necessary one. And I actually hold no animosity to the society at large. I understand my situation was rather isolated, but it can happen, so I have to be aware of it. But that small man with limited motion could kick butt on the field, left, right, and center. And he was an inspiration because if he can do it, whatever I'm dealing with, how dare I think that can stop me? And I have been crazily on that march. I've been on that jazz since the beginning. And I encourage you to as well. I've had varieties of students. I've worked with people who went on to, one of my students eventually took up collegiate fencing and got rank A and was trying to, was getting ready to try to get to the Olympic prelims, and he blew out his knee. Tragedy. Heck of a swordsman. But I mean, I've got people who they've gone off to Ampguard and Canarac and things like that, had a grand old time because they improved their stuff fighting. And what I've found is it's infectious. Because if you spread the idea of joyful learning and a willingness to study and a willingness to accept anyone, when they teach and when they express themselves, oh gosh, they put off a light. That's it. There's a glow, and that is my absolute jam. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. You dang near blew out your knee this last weekend. Was able to catch it before it was a problem, but still, ouch. Got to be careful with that knee. All about the foot alignment. That knee foot alignment gets you. That's why there are certain martial arts I'm not fond of the stances because the pressure on the knee. What I like to do is look for the old people in a given martial art and look at what they do, especially around footwork. Now, if they are able to move in a way you want to be able to move, there's a good chance you should do what they do. Me, I explain, and I usually can demonstrate, and then I explain that this is how somebody would move and should move with a normal skeletal structure. I have several abnormalities, and I've cross-trained in too many styles for the pure basics to ever be pure in my free sparring. But yes, be careful with that. You've got to use those knees for a long time. And man, Saber is so much fun. It is such a great style. And I hope you can recover quickly. But hey, take this time to study and exchange, and maybe you can find a local HEMA group to play with too. I'm not sure you do Saber, but I'm not sure. I think you said collegiate, didn't you? Let me check. I'm sorry. Uh, I'm just scrolling through the comments to try to find new Saber instructor for my clubs. Okay. Uh, Fluidity, flexibility, and take the time to do your drills. In fact, that's how I end every show that I run on this channel when I run these. It is getting that time. I am almost 2 hours in to my 1 hour Friday show. And after doing my, I want to say, hour and a half, 2 hour show on my other channel, the Nicholas Talker YouTube channel, where I do art and I have a 3 times a week sort of chat talk show about motivating authors and other creatives towards doing what you can to be the most you are. But it's interesting that Nick's morning audience is completely different than his evening crowd. Well, normally I don't broadcast this kind of material to the Nicholas Talker channel. There was a technical glitch, but it's great to see the streams crossing a bit too. I want you guys, and my voice is starting to get a little dry actually, to continue. Give me a second. Like I said, it's been a long broadcast day for me. I end with keep your eyes open, do your drills, keep your guard up, and be kind to yourself and each other. Because the world we want to be better will be when we make the small portion we have control of better, even if it's just our own minds. You guys can become anything you want within acceptable physics and reasons. And for me, acceptable reason is a little broader than most folks. But to all you out there doing your drills and writing your notes, because if you are teaching, oh yes, breathe. Every breath is everything. But if you are teaching, so this goes out to Sin. Write your notes down. Write down your observations. Write down what you learn about the given styles. And then eventually disseminate it. Publish your manuals. Give them out if you don't want to deal with self-publishing. I self-publish through Amazon Kindle Direct, KDP. But get your stuff out there because your perspective is so important. It should outlast you. You're in good company. To the point I'm a member of the Scuba Sleeper Squad. I have to use a BiPAP because I don't. Breathing for me is literally not always automatic. I really am bad at quite a lot. But I'm better than I was. And I think you guys can be too. So I will see you next week. Let me look at my. Yes. I will. I should see you next week. Okay. It's big item pickup day. I have a lot of work I have to do, but by 8 o'clock, I should be pretty well settled. Please like and subscribe to this. And over on the Nicholas Tucker channel, I will be broadcasting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 10 a.m. till usually 11:30, 12-ish, somewhere in there, except on Wednesdays when I do art streams. It really is, because not only will you learn better, will organize your thoughts, but you'll be able to consult your earlier self and see where you grew and how you grew. It's sort of showing the work. Welcome new people, and I'm glad to see everyone. All right, folks. Sadly, I do actually need to end the stream, so I will see you all very soon. Toodles.